Hey, I've got Robert, the studio technician. Come here, Robert. Show. Look at him. He's got the plugs in. See, he's like wired in. See, I knew that's what I needed. I needed a producer. So Robert is my producer today. And Robert actually had a great part. Hi from Russia. Blessings. So Robert played a great part in helping me prepare some of this morning. Diane, God's great day. So we want to get going. I know it's great to meet everyone. Matthew, so good to have you here. The others, I apologize. I missed you. Thanks for the hearts. Thanks for the shares. Everybody's kind of got things going. So today, a question came up in a group I have, and this kind of relates to that question. I thought there's some real value here that I don't know if I've ever shared like this, and that is the nature of faith. What is the nature of faith? What is it to believe God? Now we know, right? Proverbs 3:5-6, right? Trust in the Lord with all our heart, right? In Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all our heart. But what we find in life is in our heart, in our lives, and I'm F.C. Farwell, I'm a minister. I share keys of the kingdom to lift you to your God-given destiny. So you launch out with the deep things of God. So you carry heavenly presence and life wherever you go. So what is the nature of faith? Well, the nature of faith is not, I believe what I see. It's not. Yes, deep things. It isn't, I believe what I hear. It's not. I believe what I feel. It's not. I know what I see. I know what I hear. I know what I feel. I know what I taste. I know I smell, all those things. But if those are the things that my life is determined by, I will live by sight, right? I will live by sight. And sight, it only gets you so far. And when it comes to things of God, I'm sorry, we don't go far if we walk by sight. If I think about the times of some of the healings and things that have happened in my life and ministering to others, if I went by the circumstances, I would have never seen what God had for me. Let's see, I was like checking my thing out here. I see that. Anyway, so this is fun. Let's do this. I did this last time. So, okay. So we are talking about faith. And faith is believing. Now, I need someone who can actually write, right? It's coming in backwards. Well, we don't want to walk backwards with God, right? We don't want to do that. So we'll get rid of the sketchy thingy. I got to figure out, oh yeah, done right there. Okay, done with the sketchy, playing games. Antoinette, good morning, welcome. So what is faith? What is the nature of faith? Faith is believing, really, faith truly is believing in something you don't see. But faith, genuine, is believing what God has promised and said to us. In other words, I'm not agreeing with circumstances that do not agree with God's word, that do not agree with his promises. I don't come in agreement with that. I come in agreement with what God has declared and said is mine to, to believe, to act on, to walk out on life. So let's get going. So 2 Corinthians 5:7, 2 Corinthians 5:7. Just this, what we're sharing today, can change your whole life. It can. Look, if a seed growing in the ground looked at its circumstances and goes, it looks pretty hard out there. It doesn't look like, to me, it doesn't look good if a seed could. Thank you, Joshua and Antoinette, for putting that in there. It looked at it and go, man, I don't think so. I'm not going out there. There's nothing there for me, right? Well, but all the nutrients are in the soil, right? And then the sun is above the ground, so once it breaks ground, it gets the sun, but it doesn't see the sun under the ground, so its circumstances, if a seed could think, would be like, I'm staying in my shell. Look, faith is what gets us out of our shell and into the glorious provision of our God. So 2 Corinthians 5:7, we walk by what? What do we walk by? I mean, this is one we know, right? Stefanova, good morning. So Patty on FB Live. Gino, oh my gosh, Gino, I stayed at your house like 20 years, I don't know, wasn't that long ago, 10, 12 years ago when Sangat Bains came in from India and we did that his healing class. You know what I'm talking about. So Gino, I've never forgotten being with you, your wife, and your family. So thank you for that. So yeah, faith. Gino put it in. Here it is. Maybe someone did hear faith. All right, Patty put it in. We walk by faith, not by sight. That word walk means to live. In other words, it is the actions that we carry out in life. Actions are a result of faith. What we believe, we act on, right? Faith without works is dead. We know that. Okay, but the truth is, the just shall live by same thing, faith. In other words, not only do I have this faith, this believing God's promise or his word, I act on it. It would be like getting born again. If I believed, so I go, well, if I confess Jesus is, Lord of my life, God raised him from the dead, or whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. I go, I like that. That's really good. But if I never come into agreement where I act on it, within my heart, because faith and fear both really originate in the heart. Unbelief comes from the heart, and faith comes from the heart. And that's why when someone speaks, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. That's why when they speak, I know where they're at, right? I can look at records in the Bible and see with people where they are at and where they're, and I can see Jesus' response because of their actions and words. So that Romans 10:9-10, it's a nice word, it sounds good, but until I act on it, it becomes a part of me that I release it from the heart, it doesn't become a reality and I don't become born again. If you or I have a need, I have a need, we find the promise in God's word, we find the truth, that we have a solid foundation to stand on, and we stand on that word. The man or woman who believes God has the request, and we'll see that. So to believe is to live, to walk by faith, not by the eyeballs, right? And the earballs and so forth, or you know what I'm saying. 1 John 5:9. Robert gave this to me this morning. I was really blessed. Robert kind of said, hey, this says, if we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. The testimony would be a witness of men, and you could even relate it to what my senses are telling me. But God's testimony is greater. It has more authority than what is being related to me by the witness, the testimony, the witness of men. Thanks, Antoinette. It's so good to see you again. I know Antoinette's going to be working on a podcast, and she's got some things going. She's really, she has some real skill and her husband, Derek, in helping people in the business realm and who are believers and want to release life in the business realm and manifest the prosperity that 3 John 2 speaks about. And of course, I could say something incredible about each of you all here. So if I'm not speaking about you, remember, God is speaking about you, because he says that, what is it in Corinthians? That we are the epistle known and read of all men, because they read our lives. They read what comes out of our heart. What comes out of our heart? Look, we're going to walk through life. We're going to live through life. Do you hang out with people that are like, no, I don't believe that. That'll never work. I ain't going there. Nothing doesn't interest me. Nothing happening. I think I'm just going to sit here in a corner and just be me and miserable. Man, that is not walking out with God. Walking out with God is I am stepping out. I see that situation. Oh, I see it, but it doesn't agree with what God says. I'm going into that situation and I'm speaking the testimony of God that's greater than the testimony of men. And let's watch what God does. Get it? Got it? That's good. So about Abraham, let's consider Abraham. He's considered the father of all those that believe. Look, he's the one. Abraham is the one that he offered up Isaac, right? To burn him. Right? He was going to offer him up by faith and so forth. And God sends the ram for the sacrifice. And it was an example of how to believe. Abraham believed what he believed at the core, at the depth of the center of what he believed, that if he offered up his son, he's going to burn him, right? He's going to be burned up. How did Isaac even go? I'm not going up there, Dad. It says he put him up there and he tied him, right? And then God provides the ram. He followed through. Abraham believed that his son would be resurrected. in a pattern of what would happen with Jesus Christ. So Abraham was revealing already what was in God's heart, that God would raise his son, Jesus Christ, from the dead many years before Christ gave his life for us. So the testimony of what God, his witness, has declared and revealed is greater than our senses. If we receive the testimony of men, okay, I get it. Look, you got to drive your car, you got to do things. There's things you have to walk in this world, but we'll never walk in the abundance and the powerful truths of our Father's Word unless we believe, which means faith, which means we walk on that Word. We declare in the darkness of the day, now night's dark, but in the darkness of the day of what the world declares, we declare the glorious light of our Father that releases his life in our bodies, in our circumstances, in our situations, mentally, physically, spiritually. So about Abraham, Romans 4, 17 through 19 says this. God speaks to Abraham, right? I have made you a father of many nations. Now wait a minute. Abraham had no children. No children, right? And so he's this example of a believer, but there was something I was thinking. Oh, his name was Abram, right? Abram. And I believe Abram meant of like tall stature, you know, like tall dude. I mean, he would have been good on the basketball team, I guess. All right. But God changes his name to Abraham. His name was changed to Abraham, as far as I remember, 20 years or more before he had Isaac. Now, there's something wonderful about this name. Abraham means the father of a multitude. And there's another meaning that relates, and I don't remember it. But I remember one of them is the father of a multitude. He had no progeny. He had no seed. So it's like his name was declaring that nations would come out of him when there was not even one. It was zero. Every time he would hear that name declared over him, it was, you are the father of a multitude of nations, whatever. You know what I'm saying, that this project would come forth because God declared, look at the stars of heaven, Abraham. And he says, your seed, your descendants are going to be like that. Are you kidding? God was not kidding. He was showing them who his plans and purposes for his life. Okay, I've made you the father of many nations. And he was confessing that. Every time he heard Abraham, he was confessing it. And it was when it became a heart thing. It got in his heart that it worked. Now, this is interesting. He would consider him the father of all that believe, right? He's the father. He's got it, right? He didn't start out that way. Look, he tried to figure it out. Sarah tried to figure it out. They tried to bring to pass God's promises by their own ability. They did. What did they do? Oh, Sarah, why don't you get with my handmaid Hagar, and maybe God will produce the descendant that he's promised by your ability. Oh, yeah. So Abraham, who against hope, believed in hope, and so forth, he didn't start out there. He started out like any of us do. He started in kind of like unbelief. And then, okay, I'm going to work it out. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to bring to pass God's promise by my figuring it out. And we've considered this before. 1 foot in the kingdom and 1 in the world produces a 0. It is only when we are fully in with God and we are totally relying on him that mighty things are produced. Okay, Charlotte. Yes, Father, we thank you for Charlotte and her family and things going on and your protection and care, your blessings. Father, give them peace and strength. Okay, so we'll see you, Charlotte. Love you. Love and blessings. So, in the presence of God in whom he believed, Abraham, who gives life to the dead. Now, dead, I have to look at that and go, there's no life there, okay? Wait a minute. Against hope, believed in hope. He calls it things which are not as though they are. In other words, what is coming out of our heart? What are we releasing and what are we producing? I'm going to tell you, if you will trust God, the man that believes God has his promise, you will see mighty provisions and workings coming forth. who gives life to the dead, calls into existence the things that do not exist. They are not, and now they are, because we're speaking life in those situations. In hope, he believed against hope. In other words, it was hopeless. Have you ever been in a case? Reggie, good morning. Ann, welcome. Nathaniel. Gino, have a great day. I'm sorry I missed some of the comments. Blessings, brother. So against hope, believed in hope. In other words, the situation is hopeless. What situation have you dealt with, are you dealing with, or what will you deal with in the future that is absolutely hopeless? I'm telling you, we're going to speak hope into that situation, because when you have hope with God, the most hopeless situation is not hopeless anymore. So against hope, he believed in hope. And then in the other relate of it, why would you speak hope into someone that has no hope? Because there is hope, even in the most hopeless situation, or by the senses, right? Walking by the flesh, we'd see it. So, prophetess beloved, good morning. So you'll become the father of many nations, as he has been told, so shall your offspring be. Now, it says, he did not weaken in faith when he considered his own body. This is the ESV. Good morning. It's such a joy to have you here, Tamika. Such a joy. Look, a lot of the versions, the King James, New King James, and a lot of them say it like this. He did not weaken in faith when he considered not, or did not consider his own body. In other words, what some versions say is that he didn't consider his circumstances. He didn't consider his circumstances limiting. Actually, he did. That's why he did the Hagar thing. My circumstances are limited. How's God going to do this? I'm going to make it work. When you try to make God's promise work and you're wondering why it's failing, it's because you're trying to bring it to pass instead of trusting God. God says, I got this. Look, let me do this for you. And you're like, God, I know you got it, but let me do it. He crosses his arms and goes, have at it. Have at it. But the text is that he did not weaken in faith when he considered his own body, which is good as dead. In other words, his body, as far as we understand here, he could not produce a child. Okay? Could not produce a child. All right, Tamika, let's catch you later. He could not produce a child. Therefore, he did consider his circumstances. He said, my circumstances say this isn't going to work. But he didn't look at he considered the circumstances. He saw them. But he considered the promise of God greater than the testimony of men, right? He considered not his testimony, but the testimony of God greater. Yes, when we think in limitation, we do desperate things. That is really good. Right. When you or I start to work to make the promise of God to come to pass, and I see my pad's falling here going, woo! When we try to work to make the promise of God come to pass, it always fails. Because trusting, believing, relying on God means total reliance 100%, not 99%. So he did not weaken in faith. He didn't lose faith. He didn't lack faith when he considered his own body, which was good as dead, since he's about 100 years old, or when he considered the barrenness of Sarah's womb that she couldn't produce. At first he did. That's why they went to Hannah or Hagar. Hagar, and so forth. Not Hannah. That's another record for another day. So he did not weaken in faith. Are you weakening in faith by the testimony of men, what you're seeing in the world, compared to what God says? Because of that circumstance and what it's saying, and we're not supposed to walk by sight, but you're walking by sight, are you trusting in your circumstances greater than God? It won't work out. Don't blame God. It all goes here. Where is my reliance? Look, it's a love that is beyond knowledge, right? A peace that passes understanding, a joy that's unspeakable. Everything about God takes us into the supernatural. That's what he's about. So, Abraham recognizes, according to his body and his senses, that he could not physically have a child with Sarah. It was not possible. So, Yes, and we said 1 John 5:9 that the testimony, if we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. In other words, if I walk in God's testimony, I receive that testimony, that word, that provision. If I receive the testimony of men, look at that and consider that as the greater value. I receive the testimony of men. 1 John 5:14 and 15. And this is the confidence. The what? The confidence. Do you know what confidence is? It's the assurance. And look, if you have assurance, you've got a written guarantee. Now, men, we write a contract. We write a contract. Assurance. Tamika, that's right. We write in a contract, here's my insurance. You know why we need papers today, signed contracts? Because it used to be a handshake would do. You give me your handshake, I take your word on it. That's how it used to be. But it got to be we couldn't trust man's word anymore, so we had to make a contract. And now people break contracts and we can't trust contracts. Do you know what I'm saying? Look, the covenant we have with God through his son is a legal, binding, spiritual provision contract. Lisa, thank you. Anthony, faith is, we're getting to that, Anthony. Yeah, Anthony, you're ahead of, see, you're supposed to be here. What are you doing there? Okay. He who believes God has his request. And this is the confidence we have toward him, that assurance, that if we ask anything, not some things, anything that is according to his will, what he's told us, what he has spoken to us, what he has revealed. And if we look at the provision in the Old Testament, the dead got up in the Old Testament. There's a count. There were some incredible things with Joshua. The time stopped, right? And it says there was not a day like that or since that where God responded to man, and that was a servant. Well, look, maybe it's because no one has risen up to believe God with the simplicity that Joshua did. Think about that. Maybe we haven't walked on the water. Now, maybe we don't need to walk on the water, but maybe we haven't walked on the water because we haven't walked into that place of the testimony of God. Of course, I think partially that plays in it. There's a need, but if I make it only the need, then, let's, in other words, what does God have? What does he promise? Look, he sends in battle. He sent bees, right? He sent hornets or something to sting the enemy army, right? There was one time where they were singing, and as they sang praises, God gave them the victory. Yeah, that which he has spoken, his will, is his provision, is his provided resource that brings into manifestation his life. But if the testimony of men is greater in our heart, that's what's coming out of my mouth. What am I receiving? Hey, I have a need in my life, and I'm looking at that, and it's not working out. Abraham did consider his body, but against hope, he believed in hope, and he believed that God would do what he had said, even though his circumstances told different. In other words, the testimony of God was greater than his physical circumstances testimony. So, that is, we ask anything according to his will. Do we know his will? If we don't know his will, how are we going to ask? That's a problem. Well, God, I really don't know your will. Well, find his will, get it in there, and start walking it out. Declare his will on your life. And if we know he hears us, he hears us, and whatever we ask, we know that we have the request we've asked us of him. We know we have the request. Before I see it as a physical manifestation, I know it's mine. I know it's yours. The man who believes God has his request. Oida, good morning. So this is something Smith Wigglesworth said, and I actually modified it so now it's an F.C. Smith Wigglesworth statement. Whatever, right? I am not moved by what I see. I am moved only by what I believe. I know this. No man looks at his circumstances or relies on his feelings if he believes. You understand? I said the circumstances, but then I determined the circumstances of God are greater. The truths of God are greater. No man considers how he feels if he believes. The man who believes God has his request. Hey, for a guy that supposedly, as we know, raised over like 30 people from the dead and all, look, what's greater than death? What is standing in your way to walk out with the might and authority of God in your life? What have you allowed to stand that you can see, but you can take the testimony of God into that and say, I know what my circumstances say, but I know what my God has declared and what he will do because he has made it known. Hebrews 11:1. Ephesians. Ephesians 11. If any of you find book chapter of 11 Ephesians, let me know. Right? 6 chapters. Ephesians 11. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for. Thank you, Antoinette. The conviction of things not seen. Okay, that's good. We kind of get it, right? I want to give you like a literal translation of this text that we would understand according to a modern usage. Believing is the title deed to things prayed for, the evidence that they are yours before they are seen. Do you know sometimes if you've paid cash for a vehicle or some property or whatever, you get a deed. Even if you haven't stepped on the property yet, you get a deed, or a deed is held. Look, if you buy stocks or gold, sometimes people buy gold and they'll do it in depository receipts or something. In other words, they don't actually hold the gold, but they've got a deed, a title deed that says that gold is theirs. Does that communicate? Believing is the title deed. It is your declared provision from your Father for what you have requested of him, what you've prayed for. The evidence that they are yours before they are seen. The issue is, and there's always an issue, right? People want to bring up issues. The issue is it's a done deal. But the issue is, like Jesus said, whatever you ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive. He doesn't say what you pray for, you will get. Remember, it's the boat without an oar. Without faith, without a simple childlike trust, believing in your Father and his promised provision, it is not going anywhere. But faith is more like a sail than oars, because you can toil in faith. And I know there is the good fight of faith, right? I understand walking in what God has said is a challenge, because the world, we walk by faith, not by sight. What is it? It'll come to me in a minute, I think. Anyway, so faith is the assurance, is the way it reads in this version, of things hoped for, the conviction. It is your guarantee of what is yours before you see it. Remember, God declares those things which be not, though they are. When you know God's promise, you know his provision, you know his supply, and you know his plans for your life, you know that nothing in your circumstances speaks greater than what God has declared over your life. Believing is your title deed for those requests you've made, the evidence that they are yours before they are seen. When you pray, you believe. True prayer is believing, and you're laying at the Father's feet. You're not going, I hope, I wish, I think, it might, it could. It is mine. My Father has declared it, and I stand that ground. I stand on that deed of truth, and I will walk out what he has for me. We walk by faith, not by sight. That is how we live. The nature of faith is one that has so rested their heart on God that they know their God will come through for them. Okay. Thanks for stopping by today. Go forth with this word of wisdom that God has, and walk it out, and everything will come up roses, as they say. In other words, everything will change to bring God's provision into your life. Your need is there, held and reserved for you, waiting for you. As Jesus said, the kingdom is ours. Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, to tap the kingdom, those resources, and manifest them to our world. All right?